Yo, what's up, everybody? Yeah, I remember back in the days when I used to cut hair. I used to cut hair on 144th Street and 8th Avenue. When I first started cutting hair, there used to be the Ponderosa right next to the, it was a beat up Ponderosa. That used to be the club called the Ponderosa, right there where it's a supermarket there now. First there was a Pathmark, then there was a supermarket. Used to be a smoke spot right there too. That's where all the rappers used to come by. They smoked from next door to where I was at. But it was the Ponderosa, then it was an apartment building, then it was a laundromat, and then it was a cleaners, I think it was. No, it was the Ponderosa, the barbershop, an apartment door, vestibule, and then the laundromat. And when I first started cutting hair, that's when I used to work with Dale. I used to work with Dale. Dale called himself Doppy Loppy. he said his name was Doppy Loppy. He was from High Chaparral. That Dale would come in the barbershop, man, and from the minute he come in the barbershop, he would start talking. And he would not stop talking till later on that night. Dale would come in the barbershop about 10 o'clock in the morning, and he would not stop talking. He would not stop talking till about 9 o'clock at night. He could go. Oh man, Dale used to have that shop so live. Yo, he was a funny guy, boy. Yeah, that was the days. It was Dale, Jerry. It was Dale, Jerry, Jason, D, and me. And there was a lot of guys in that barbershop. It was me. It was Melvin in the front. Then D. Then Jerry. Then me. And Big Jerry. And sometimes Jason would come in. But Jason would go back and forth. Jason. And then there was Wayne. Wayne used to come in. Wayne used to come in on Saturdays. Wayne could cut. Wayne was from New Jersey. That guy could cut some hair, boy. Jerry used to do hair. Big Jerry. Little Jerry was an older guy, had an afro. But I'm just saying, like, the barbershop back in the days, it was different, man. I don't know how it is now. I mean, but then you had guys, then there was a barbershop right across the street from us. That was, I forgot, Sharon. That was Sharon's shop. It was full of girls. And a dude named Lee used to cut hair across the street. Puerto Rican dude named Lee. Yep. We was over there by Drew Hamilton Projects, right there by Drew Hamilton, where they filmed Paid in Full over there. They filmed the garage over there when they filmed Paid in Full. But I'm just talking about, like, it's different. Then then gentrification happened, then the shops started closing and shit. And they started making us, we had to move. We moved from 144th and 8th Avenue to 147th and 7th Avenue. And when you move, customers don't like to follow you a lot of times. People say customers follow you. If they got a car, they might follow you. But it's different in New York City, because in New York City, you got to find parking and all that shit. And if you can't find a place to park, then people don't get a haircut. And, like, people don't be wanting to come from Jersey to get their haircut because then they can't find parking. And then you get a ticket, that's like a $75 ticket, and the haircut back then was only $10. So I mean, you done paid like $90 for a haircut. After you got a ticket and shit. But that barbershop shit was fun back in the day. It was fun, but I remember back in the days, man, people would come, I bought comic book collections. I bought a whole tool set. I got a boxing card collection, furs, and that was at the end of the good barbershopping days. That was like in the 90s. But back then, back in the 80s, boy, you could be in the barbershop and get anything out the barbershop. Back then, that's when everybody was scamming people with them calling cards. There was calling cards, and cell phones wasn't out yet. People still had to use the calling cards on the payphone. This was in the late 90s. Like 95, 96. You had to use those, and people were still scamming with the credit card, with the phone cards and shit like that. Yeah. And then people always come in the barbershop with shit. Starbucks wasn't in Harlem yet. Right there on 144th and 8th Avenue. But I'm giving it up. I mean, when I gave it up, I started writing books. I said, I'm going to write books. And that's when I used to be on the 125th Street. I used to go on the 125th Street and sell my book on the Mark 120, in front of the Mark 125. And that's when the girl that wrote True to the Game, I can't remember her name, but she was out there too. And she used to be walking back and forth selling True to the Game. Just like I was. Back then, I didn't have a book. I had a chat book. I didn't have a chat. I had a chat book. That's when I used to go. I used to go make them. That's when Kinko's. I used to go to Kinko's. Or I used to go to Kinko's and get it made and get it stapled together. And then I would go to poetry readings and stuff like that and sell them there. And I was like, man, when my book come out, I'm quitting my job. I'm quitting cutting hair. And I'm going to just go out and sell my book. And that's when you needed a software called Cork Express. And when you did your book back in the days, you used to have to do everything separate. You used to have to buy the barcode, the ISBN, the book cover, and the paper all separately. And then people start getting smart. And then that's when a company called Books Just Books put all those components under one roof. So you could get all done at one spot. And I used to go to booksjustbooks.com, was down there on 42nd Street with Will Smith. When Will Smith was talking to Fred, he was like, Fred, what you doing, Fred? That's what booksjustbooks.com is. I used to go down there and get my books printed. And back then, I used to go into the office. You could mail it in. You could mail in your whole software, but I used to go into the office and talk to them. And that's when I started going. And I used to get 1,000 books at a time. You couldn't order one book like you do now. Right now, you can order one book and you get it done through Amazon. But you used to have to order 1,000 books at a time. And I used to order 1,000 books. And as soon as I get down to a couple of hundred, I will order 1,000 more. I remember one year I ordered 5,000 books. And I had an empty apartment. I had an empty room in the apartment. And that room was full of books. The books was piled to the ceiling. And I should just go out there and push them books every day. And I would take 30 books out with me. I would take 30 books. I used to carry a bag. And I would take all the books out the bag. And I would sell 30 books in one day. I would sell 30 books like in 3 or 4 hours. I would get on the D train or the A train. And I would ride the D train or the A train all the way to Brooklyn. But no, I would ride 125th Street back. I ride to 125th Street to 59th Street, 125th Street to 59th Street, 125th Street to 59th Street, 125th Street. I would do that shit for about 5 or 10 times. Take a break and go to 59th Street and drink coffee. That's when the Starbucks is. I used to go in that Starbucks on 59th Street. Then, when the crowd died down, I would go all the way to Brooklyn, to Coney Island. And I would do that shit about 3 hours. Boom, boom, boom. Then I would go sit in the Starbucks over there on Atlantic Avenue. And by then, I'd be finished. Now, I would go home, because I lived in Brooklyn at the time. I would go home, stay in Brooklyn. I would go home, change my clothes, and go fishing for the rest of the day. That was sweet. I used to go fishing. So 30 books a day. Like I tell people, one day I got on the train. 2 times I got on the train. And I sold 30 books on one car. I made $300 on one car. I couldn't get off the car. Every time I got ready to get off the car, somebody said, let me get a book. I went home and got 30 more books and sold those in 3 hours. That day I sold 98 books that day. Made $980 in one day on that train. I was booking, boy. I used to be on that train hard body. People roll their eyes at me and shit. But like I'm not doing no harm to nobody. I'm doing something good. I'm trying to get my work out there. My poetry make you laugh and make you think. And I used to do that shit. I started back in 90. I think I started in 2003 selling my book. I think it was 2003 is when I published my first book. I published Corner Stores in the Middle of the Block. And the funny thing is, I'm talking, let me try to finish it. The funny thing is, back in the day when I first did Corner Stores in the Middle of the Block, I didn't know how to add color. So my book was black and white because I didn't know how to add color. And then when I learned how to add color, it was black and white with red letters. And then I took my picture off the book and put a corner store on the book. And then that was the biggest mistake I ever made. I took that because people didn't know I wrote it. So I put my picture back on the book, and which is this one right here. Yo, get a copy of my book, y'all. Corner Stores in the Middle of the Block. And don't beat your children or they'll turn out like me. All right, y'all. Take it easy, all right? Take it easy. Peace.